Chances are that if you're watching this, then you happen to be a Nintendo fan. Nintendo is an odd company, one that brings joy to millions of people around the world and at the same time makes so many poor decisions it's not even funny. And so I ask myself, what are they thinking over and over? And yet I continue to call myself a Nintendo fan, and I probably will until the day I die, not gonna lie. So just what kind of company is Nintendo today? And how do they tackle the games industry in comparison to their greatest rivals in Sony and Microsoft? And to understand this, I'll briefly go over some of Nintendo's history. Oh, and I just want to say that this video isn't meant to defend Nintendo or such, it's literally what the title says, a breakdown of how the company really is and how I, as a lifelong fan, understand them. The name Nintendo is a combination of three kanji, nin, ten, and do. Nin basically means duty, ten means responsibility, and do means temple. Though Nintendo themselves actually prefers saying that the name means leave luck to heaven. Nintendo started off as a company focused on producing playing cards in 1889. Their cards are called Hanafuda, or flower cards in English. The cards quickly grew in popularity, and thus Nintendo started to grow its business tremendously fast. Fast forward a couple of years, and Nintendo had tried a lot of stuff like a taxi business and even a love hotel. But it was in the 1970s and 80s when Nintendo really started to dabble in the gaming market. Things like the Game & Watch alongside the hit arcade game Donkey Kong hit the scene. But the gaming landscape truly changed with the introduction of the NES. Essentially, Nintendo dominated the gaming market with the NES and the SNES, or SNES, revolutionizing home console gaming as a whole. But then, following a breakdown in relations with Sony and Philips during the SNES era led to Philips CDI and Sony PlayStation being created, which is arguably one of the worst things ever to happen to Nintendo. And so, Nintendo created their biggest enemy, aside from Sega, which ended up dropping their console business in 2001. Now, Nintendo created several successful franchises early on in their gaming career. Mario and Donkey Kong had their start on arcades, Zelda and Metroid on NES, Kirby and Pokemon on Game Boy. Nintendo has essentially always been focused on creating high-quality games before anything else, and then evolving those games in new and fun ways to play. And that's Nintendo's main driving factor in creating games. Creating new and fun ways to play, while competitors focus more and more on technical power for better visuals and performance each generation, Nintendo instead wants to make sure that there is a clear new appeal to a product of theirs. Going in order of home consoles, NES brought actual gaming to the home, easily outclassing any competitors like Atari or even the Odyssey. The SNES introduced true 16-bit gaming along with expanding the controller from 2 measly face buttons to 4 along with introducing the L and R buttons, true RGB video support, an amazing sound chip that could produce lifelike sounds. N64 introduced the world to a true 64-bit gaming experience and true 3D gaming with the analog stick, 4 controller ports allowing for 4-player multiplayer games. The GameCube perfected 3D gaming, introducing L and R triggers, 2 analog sticks. It was the first Nintendo console to use discs and the first Nintendo console to feature real online multiplayer with an adapter. The Wii introduced the world to motion-controlled gaming and seamless online multiplayer using Wi-Fi. The Wii U introduced a new screen, allowing for new ways to play using both the TV and the gamepad at the same time, also allowing for off-TV play as well as high-definition video output for the first time on Nintendo consoles. Finally, the Switch made it possible to play AAA games on the go, as well as a lot of other retro games on Switch Online. There's nothing quite like Nintendo games. Over and over they find new ways to play and revolutionize what it means to play games. So, with all of that praise out of the way, let's talk about Nintendo's business management. Nintendo is a very traditional company in a sense. What I mean is essentially you touch their stuff and you're dead. Copyright itself is always a controversial topic in the gaming community. There's no company more stubborn and honestly brain dead as Nintendo when it comes to it. First of all, yes, every company has the right to protect their IPs and such. But there's a big limit to what is understandable copyright and what's downright weird. Nintendo is one of those companies that hates fan games more than anything. And well, I'd understand it if the fan game creators tried to make money off the property instead of just releasing it for free. The thing is though that most fan games are free and essentially function as free marketing for Nintendo itself. But Nintendo doesn't see it that way. No, for them, the fan games is always a way to try and profit from their games, nothing more, nothing less. And damn, it's just shameful to think of ultra-passionate fans like that and not for what they actually are. These are the people most dedicated to the games you create. Don't shut them out. Oh, and before someone mentions the possibility of fan games harming the reputation of the main series of games. Well, nah. Like, if something truly controversial got traction, then yes, I'd understand stepping in. But for stuff like Pokemon Uranium, for example, it really isn't anything other than a new Pokemon game. But you know what isn't such a controversial thing? Subscribing to the channel if you're enjoying yourself. Thanks. Now, aside from the whole copyright fiasco thing, Nintendo has a weird kink of not releasing their older games on newer platforms. Essentially, ever since the Wii, Nintendo offered a service called the Virtual Console that allowed people to buy their older games and basically emulate them on Wii, 3DS, and eventually Wii U. And then with the Switch, the Virtual Console was gone, in favor of Nintendo Switch Online. With a paid membership, you can currently get access to select NES and SNES games, but if you pay a little bit more for the expansion pass membership, you also get a few N64 games and Sega Mega Drive or Genesis games. Now that sounds nice, right? In reality though, the actual game selection is still very small and growing incredibly slow. At the rate we're going, we might see GBA games before the whole process of releasing old games is gonna start over with the NES again on the next Nintendo system. There are hundreds of games not available on the service, games that aren't available anywhere else other than the original console. Some even cost hundreds of dollars to find for the original consoles, and that sucks. The fact that a product isn't available anymore means that Nintendo isn't making any money out of it either. That makes people go to emulation on PC and most likely download ROMs to relive memories or even make new ones. The thing is, Nintendo being the copyright boys they are, doesn't like emulation too much, to say the least. Essentially, Nintendo loves hunting down ROM sites and finding people incredibly high sums of money for apparently damaging their company. Because as we all know, downloading a 20-year-old game not available for sale anymore is morally wrong and can hurt the company. Yee, anti-fan movement, let's go. Honestly, Retrospective put it best in this thumbnail. Over and over, Nintendo innovates and creates incredible games. Unrivaled in what they make, they have the right to call themselves the best at what they do. Some experiments might go better than others, but at the end of the day, Nintendo continues to grow and innovate. It's just a shame that we can't ever experience the full potential of Nintendo. With the fanbase divided and even hunted down by lawyers in some cases, it's not surprising it can be hard to call yourself a Nintendo fan sometimes. As for me, I don't agree with many of their decisions as you've seen. But at the end of the day, I love their games and my whole life is dedicated to continuing to love their stuff. I simply can't get enough of it. Nintendo is a fascinating company. On the one hand, they create amazing games, and on the other is led by frankly people that have outdated views on how the gaming landscape is nowadays. As a final message for this video, I just wanna say, whose idea was it to bring back friend codes for the Switch? It's not 2006 anymore. Oh man, you made it! This took a while to create, so thanks for making it through it all. It's been a lot of personal stuff that's gotten in the way recently, and so I want to thank all the new viewers that have joined since the last video. I'll see you all later. Have a good one.